たまにはのんびりするのも悪くない。いいな。
断罪の名において
判決を下す。
姿を見、
みんなは俺が守る。
夜の権限。断罪の 黒き翼よ、昼夜を切り裂きなさい。
みんながそばにいてくれるわ。傷なんて痛ま燃えろ。
風だここだよ。
裁きを受けよ。
姿を見せよ。
全力攻撃だ。
夜の権限。断罪の名によ。
走るより飛ぶ方が早いよ。 something,
No,
if
I
it's
haven't
doing
checked it
more
out
harm
yet.
than it's worth. And would you know it, but Leaf Brands is producing the Reborn Hydra. Decades. And best of all, we know that strategy can work in the face of juggernauts like Oreo, Nabisco, and Mondelez. Let me introduce you to Tate's Bake Shop, a small brand of chocolate chip cookie that, in less than 20 years, broke through the crowded cookie market to give Mondelez, a company that made billions in the cookie aisle, a run for their money. The reason Tate's Bake Shop was so successful was that it was a premium product made with the same ingredients that you or I would use to make cookies. Chocolate chips, unbleached flour, butter, eggs, vanilla, you know, normal sounding stuff, not chemical names. And it worked. People were snatching them up, causing an upheaval in the chocolate chip cookie market strong enough to get Mondelez to purchase the brand for $500 million in 2017. Hydrox has the same advantage, so use it. Why not try something different? And if you don't mind, might I suggest starting with the name? But hey, speaking of fresh, healthy ingredients, maybe you should try something different today, like HelloFresh, the sponsor of today's episode. Theorists, do you want 12 free meals delivered right to your door with zero delivery charge? No, nothing? Just free food immediately on your doorstep? Well then, listen up. Go to HelloFresh.com by clicking the code down in the description and use the code FOODTHEORY12 to get 12 free meals, including free shipping. Heard that right, 12 meals all delivered right to your door for free. Like, if that's not a deal that's worth giving a try, I don't know what is. HelloFresh sends recipes and meal... Don't screw this up, Matt Pat. Gordon Ramsay is watching you, judging your every move. Alright, let's try to think about this logically. In what order should a burger's ingredients be stacked? If the lettuce is on the bottom, it'll catch the juices and keep the bottom bun from getting soggy, right? But if the lettuce is on the bottom, it could block the flavors above it from reaching the taste buds. Should I spread sauces on top of the bottom bun or under the top bun or both? And the cheese, it goes on top of the patty, right? Of course it does. Sorry, some kind of under patty sociopath? Although, maybe that's what Gordon Ramsay wants us to be. Okay, focus up. Where do the onions go? Time to make a decision, Matt Pat. Time to... Oh, nice. He died of boredom during my interior monologue. Oh, man, it got cold. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Food Theory, the show that strives to be well done, unlike your burger. Theorists, last summer, Food Theory went to great lengths to determine whether gas grills or charcoal grills were superior. This year, we have a new challenger entering the ring, Traeger, our sponsor for this video, who saw that episode and shipped out one of their Ironwood 885 wood pellet grills to be mounted on the
You know it.
telling me that if I'm serious about reaching my final dad pat form, I'm gonna need to up my grill game. And I gotta say, they nailed my personality in a grill exactly. It's a Wi-Fi
That shit was crazy.
that I can control with my...
The video that I was watching before this one started playing, they were talking about how freaking Oreo wasn't the original like cookie, that it was a cookie called Hydrox, and then the person who owned the cookie Hydrox was the person who was the person's brother who owned the Oreo company, Nabisco and shit. It was pretty crazy. I think it was pretty funny.
And it's set at the right temperature. It is science and tech and food, and I kind of love it. They also call the Wi-Fi technology Wi-Fire technology. Even their dad jokes are on par with mine. Also, can I just mention how the packaging turns into a cardboard playhouse? It's brilliant because so much of my life at this point is cardboard waste. So well done, Traeger. Think about us family men.
The grill is slowly emerging, but more importantly, Ollie's new playhouse is being unboxed. Oh, this is so cute.
Definitely gonna love this, and I gotta admit, I'm a little bit jealous that he gets to play inside this thing. Anyway, because this is a brand deal and I wanted an excuse to try this puppy out, today we concocted an episode that's got me on an all-day grill-a-thon, cooking up the summer staple hamburgers. But today is all about what happens when those patties leave the grill. Food Theory is a channel all about optimizing your food experience, even the finer nuances that don't always get a lot of consideration, which is why today we're tackling proper burger stack order. Now look, I get it. The order in which your burger ingredients are stacked might seem nitpicky and pedantic, but there are real reasons why this matters, people. Nobody likes their burger falling apart before it gets into their mouth, and stack order plays a huge role in that. I cannot tell you the number of delicious burgers that have been ruined for me because the sauces and the lettuce mixed together to create like a slip and slide for the patty and then whoop, out of the bun. Plus, there's the whole matter of how stack order affects the bite experience itself. Two burgers with identical ingredients but different stack orders can result in two different...
No wonder you'll appreciate my power. Would I want to be close to you? Never! Get out of my way!
Water is a chemical. What do people think is healthy but really isn't? Low fat or 100% fat free. Technically a bag of sugar is fat free. This really annoys me because 1. You need fat in your diet, not a huge amount, but your body does need it. And 2. 99% of fat-free foods just replace the fat with a ton of sugar. And while sugar isn't that bad for you when used and consumed in proper amounts, foods labeled fat-free generally have way more than one should be taking in. I'm not a health nut by any means, and some days I'll gorge myself on sugar and carbs. The part that irks me is that the packaging is advertising a lie by omission, implying that something unhealthy is healthy. Not to mention the sugar industry worked hard to make people think fat was the reason why modern processed food is so bad for us. Granola bars. The one I was eating daily had the nutritional value of a Snickers. Granola bars were always meant to be a portable, non-perishable and high-energy snack, which is automatically going to have carbs and sugar. Reminds me of the breakfast cookie people make and then they somehow decide it is healthy because it's not bacon or chocolate.
Yeah,
I don't even
literally
understand.
everything.
Very few brands actually advertise as health food. They advertise to active people, and I think the effect of seeing healthy people in the advertisements is part of what gives that false sense of nutritional value. Non-GMO products. The non-GMO project label is on thousands of products and is used as a marketing ploy. Less than 30 varieties of plants, corn, wheat, etc., even have the potential to be GMOs as of right now. People don't even know what GMO means. There are ways to manipulate the genetics of the plant while still having it technically categorized as non-GMO in legal terms. I worked in a plant biolab for a few years, and there's a huge disconnect between the scientific and marketed definitions of genetic modification. Also, we've been manipulating our crops for thousands of years, so while not modified the way most people think, we have been genetically modifying our food for a very long time. Much of our current vegetable selection is derived from wild mustard seed. Broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, kohlrabi and Brussels sprouts all can be traced back to selective breeding, genetic modification, of mustard seed. Without GMO crops, we wouldn't be able to support the population. Corn that can withstand a drought. Check. Soybeans that can repel certain bugs that could destroy it. Check. Wheat that can grow in climates that it originally wasn't intended for. Check. Yeah, modifying our crops has been happening for years and you should be grateful for it. Absolutely anything Gwyneth Paltrow sells. She is today's version of snake oil salesman. Do you think she believes her stuff works? Or is she an entitled trust fund baby with no F's to give about the little people who buy in? Even her website. The person who sits next to me at work, she got a call from IT a couple weeks back asking what website she was on. It was Google. IT told her to get off it because they kept getting warnings and alerts about it. Not safe. Gluten-free food is for people allergic to gluten. It's not some dieting trick. I have a few friends who are really into the gluten-free diet, and anytime something goes wrong with my son, who truly does have some health issues that require specialists and multiple hospitalizations a year, they recommend I try gluten and dairy-free for him. If it was that easy, we would have done it already, but this isn't diet-related. This is a problem requiring surgery. How is gluten-free going to fix this?
Almost likely we don't know.
Gluten has become this boogeyman to so many people who aren't allergic. Someone replied, as someone with a gluten allergy, I am grateful for ignorance on this topic. Gluten-free foods used to be hard to find, but thanks to its popularity, now most major grocery stores I go to have entire sections for gluten-free products. And the simple fact of it is people who jumped on gluten-free as a dieting fad early lost weight simply because there was no gluten-free junk food. They lost weight because the only gluten-free stuff was special made out of far healthier ingredients than the literal lard they were eating before. These days gluten-free is a big enough fad that you can get gluten-free junk food. which is great for the celiacs people, but renders the dieting aspect of it worthless. Organic, chemical-free skincare. Basically replacing helpful and safe chemicals for your skin with irritating ingredients, food, and essential oils that would just make things a lot worse. Sure, it works for some people, but it's not exactly a good thing to tell everyone that chemicals are bad. People often forget that we, and our skin, are actually a chemic composition, and not all of these are harmful. Everything is a chemical. Water is a chemical. I wish people didn't just tune out of high school chemistry, and I wish high school chemistry were more geared towards driving home this point better, with more real-life applicable things, especially in later year organics courses. Activated charcoal. I work in a lab and someone sent in some samples of activated charcoal for ICP-Ms. They were heavy metals present in several of the different samples, and people are using them as freaking toothpaste. The market is unregulated just like the supplements market. It's really scary what some people are putting into their bodies without knowing it. Would you lick a toy made with lead paint? No? So why are you putting this stuff in your mouth willingly with hopes of getting naturally whiter teeth? I'll take some bleach over heavy metals any day of the week. The stupid glimpses. Your body naturally gets rid of toxins and stuff. You just need to drink water. The whole toxin thing is almost always a scam. If you want a good laugh, look at the explanations of what these toxins are or what they do to your body. People think detoxing is the only thing in the way of them being healthy, when in reality is mainly them looking for any excuse not to put any effort in. It relies on a medical sounding thing that people won't look up, out of laziness or because they think they have been given all the information they need. It is like essential oils. Usually, a lifestyle change is needed for these changes to take effect, much less remain in effect. Let's take, for example, a weight loss pill. Now, if you want to lose, say, 50 pounds from your current weight, the best way to do it is to eat less and exercise more. This takes significant time and effort. If someone walked up to you and said, hey, how about instead of waking up an hour earlier and caring about what you eat, you take this pill twice a day for $25 per week, and you'll lose the same amount of weight. The offer would be tempting, even if the pill almost certainly does nothing. The worst part is, sometimes the pill does something short-term, but not long-term. So, you think you're doing the right thing, then you feel like you messed up when the weight comes back. Such is life. If you want to change, you have to make one, and it's never as simple as take a pill, unless it's a red pill. Then, you can wake up. Shielding their children from every conceivable horror in the real world until they're 18 and naive. Just let your kids get scraped knees and watch an R-rated movie every once in a while. This was my friend. Parents shielded her from everything. Needless to say, she went a lot, crazy when she got to college. She wasn't allowed to watch movies or have technology or social media. She moved out as soon as she was 18, bounced from flat share to flat share, couldn't hold a job well and went binge drinking every chance she got. She ended up pregnant and no one knew who the dad was. So much for private education. Bit sad really. Someone replied, my husband's family did this too. There are 8 of the plus spouses. I don't fit in with most of them because I believe that women are more than incubators. I have a university degree, and I'm a teacher myself. I have had to teach my husband so many life skills that he never learned, like how to cook an egg. He's now fully vaccinated, much to his family's horror, and so is our son. Smoothies from smoothie shops.
Break it in the pan and just wait.
Smoothie Cafe is particularly egregious.
Flip
They
it.
advertise half their menu as healthy options, but I worked there for half a year and know damn well just about every smoothie on the menu has at least a half cup of pure cane sugar and some additional syrup. They use sorbets, ice creams, and juices with an insane amount of sugar in them. People would always come in after going to the gym. It's not what most people think it is. Dedicating your entire life to your work without an outlet separate of it. I work in a corporate office setting and it's sad how many of my peers think working 10 to 12-hour days is something to brag about. First off, the company doesn't care about me enough to warrant working that many hours. Second, we're not out here saving lives so it benefits nobody except the higher-ups. I do my 8 hours and bounce out. You ain't catching me working that many hours just to get a few brownie points here and there. Dedicating your life just to work is really unhealthy. I mean, fair enough if you have a job you really enjoy. But even so, if you dedicate almost every waking moment to your job, there's a problem generally. It's not a great attitude. Live to work. Those stupid juicing detox programs. Your body's liver and kidneys naturally detox your body so long as you drink plenty of water. This whole notion that you are detoxing your body with juice is asinine. There's something about sitting on the toilet for the whole weekend that's really appealing to some people, though. I had a lady at work tell me she had to go on a cleanse, because she went to the chiropractor for the first time and got her back cracked. Since it was the first time her back had ever been cracked, it released a lot of toxins into her body, causing her to get sick, and she need to go on a cleanse. People are insane.
It's summer. Time to trade hibernation for liberation. Couch time for tan lines.
The vast majority of salads at restaurants. A handful of lettuce buried beneath fried chicken, cheese, and ranch dressing. The worst is places that have like 4 salad options. It'll be a terrible house salad, then a Caesar, a Cobb, and some other house creation with romaine or iceberg lettuce and a ton of unhealthy stuff. Have to be lucky to find a place with a good kale or spinach option, and very lucky to find a creative take on one that also tastes. In tribal hunter societies, someone with ADHD, who is able to react more quickly, would likely be the best hunter in the group. Scientists, what's the craziest thing in your field that you suspect to be true without having evidence? The Americas were inhabited by humans at least 30,000 years ago, possibly up to 60,000 years ago or more. Lots of archaeologists whisper this in hushed voices, but there are so many entrenched detractors that there's no way for this to become accepted until the current older generation is gone. Imagine you are 60, you have spent your career talking about how Clovis culture came first. You have written books about this, everyone has spent 40 years agreeing with you every time you talk about this. You are on a lot of funding boards and a very well-respected archaeologist, you will retire in 5 years or so. How would you feel about some guy coming along and saying what you know and have spent that person's whole lifetime teaching is wrong? There is a reasonable chance that, within the next 10 years, computers that analyze large bodies of data and make statistical predictions will be able to make much better routine strategic decisions in almost every layer of society than actual humans. This means many of the decisions that pertain to economics, politics, etc. At some point this will likely start having a major impact on the structure of society, as there won't be all that much room for argument when the computer says that some decision is or is not optimal. Some current signs that point to this, for example, are the story about an automated target marketing campaign that detected that a teenage girl was pregnant before her own father knew about it. Automated data analysis, when data is available, is simply better at predicting common events than real people. Why then would a corporation, for example, rely on human executives to make decisions about acquisitions and mergers? Why would a politician use human strategists to choose policy positions? And if a politician makes decisions by computer, why do we need the politician? This will raise some interesting questions. Should we still use human juries and judges when computers can determine guilt or innocence with much greater accuracy? What happens when a human jury convicts a man, and the Innocence Project makes an appeal on the basis that the judge-o-matic predicts that the man's chance of having actually committed the crime is 0.0000001%? Should we have politicians set the tax rate, when computers can do it better to optimize both economic growth and government performance? I would emphasize that this has little to do with AI, it's not intelligence, just prediction. And we'll have to contend with this issue long before computers become intelligent in the conventional sense. It also doesn't apply to rare, unprecedented events, so a computer won't tell you whether we'll invent cold fusion. But it will very much apply to events that have happened before, recessions, political unrest, effective taxation on the economy, etc. There is a fringe theory regarding the origin of ADHD that I find really fascinating and think probably has something to it. It says that ADHD, like many other disorders, is possibly an evolutionary adaptation that certain people have which provides a pro in addition to a con. You see, lots of, sometimes terrible, genetic disorders to have an upside. Sickle cell anemia patients, for example, are more resistant to malaria. Cystic fibrosis patients are more resistant to salmonella. So what would ADHD's upside be? Awesome hunting abilities. In tribal hunter societies, someone with a looser attention span, who is able to react more quickly to moving stimuli, would likely be the best hunter in the group, and would get showered with riches and women. Now, all it gets you is frustration and medication. By the way, one of the coolest pieces of evidence for this theory, albeit anecdotal, is that kids with ADHD tend to be abnormally good at first-person shooter video games.
New Nerds gummy clusters were invented one night as the nerds worked together trying to get it just right. Aiming for something crunchy, gummy, yummy.
That you can figure out the routes illegal immigrants will take in crossing borders on foot based on hill slopes. Initial data seems to confirm it, but there's so little work done on it out there. Basically, as far as we can tell, human beings will avoid steep stuff at all costs. The problem is that most studies are done on concrete with established pedestrian areas, and you can't just ask an illegal immigrant to tell you what route he took on foot because most of them actually don't know. Epilepsy. In severe cases, patients have all connections to one half of their brain severed to control seizures. No input, no output, and no communication with the rest of the brain, but that half remains active for the rest of their lives. For these people, aspects of their personality and memories disappear forever on the day of their surgery, because their neuroanatomical substrates resided in that hemisphere. If that half has no input but continues to fire, what is it doing? Wondering who turned the lights out? Remembering the good times? Slowly spiraling into senseless patterns of neural firing akin to dementia? I'd love to find out. In the near future we will probably start storing all our information not on hard drives and such as we do now, but we'll store it on a form of DNA that will use the ATCG base in the same sort of way as binary is used. This synthetic DNA will be able to store absolutely enormous amounts of data on a very small space with little to no deterioration. After all, DNA can survive for millions of years in ideal lab conditions. Researchers are attempting to make this a reality so that they can store data on DNA research on other DNA. A number of unpopular experiments from the 1970s onward demonstrated that some kind of impermanent evolution in plants was occurring. This would present a significant challenge to our understanding of biological evolution. A good example is that you can stunt specific species of trees for 3 generations by violently shaking the predecessor, or exposing it to high winds. Then after 3 generations the progeny return to normal size. I was quietly collecting evidence of experiments along these lines when they discovered epigenetics a few years ago. We haven't made the direct connections yet, but genetic packaging would explain it. It'd be awesome to settle the arguments about the theropod origin of modern birds once and for all. It's frustrating because of how far back in the evolutionary timeline we have to look in order to get a picture of when birds first emerged. I mean, we don't even know for sure how birds developed flight. Did they climb and glide or jump and flap for short distances? Really the only way us wildlife biologists will get some answers is if some nice geneticist or paleontologist makes a breakthrough discovery. We are going to find a biological recipe for creating self-assembled tissues from scratch. Developmental biological processes can turn a single-celled zygote into an adult human. It's pretty damn incredible when you think about it. Somewhere buried in the complexity of metazoan biology are a set of origami-like rules that allow growing tissues to self-assemble into larger tissues and organs. If we can model and manipulate these programs with precision, we can engineer just about any tissue we like. A lot of people are familiar with 3D organ printing as a route to organ manufacturing, but I think it's a dead end without more knowledge of biological self-assembly. If we can't control how tissues develop, the organs will fall apart as soon as they are printed. The missing pieces of tissue self-assembly are quantitative models for tissue morphogenesis, which are being filled in as we speak by advances in vitro tissue culturing and molecular biology. Internet communication is turning a lot of us into violent radicals, people who actively participate in public forums, like
仕事がまだ終わってません。休んでいいのでしょうか。
Take a deep breath and slowly read through Wikipedia's list of logical fallacies. Also, God's forbid, if you ever find yourself thinking the word sheeple, please enroll yourself in a university-level political science course ASAP. I am studying in a relatively new field of science called astrobiology and just finished my first internship. Of all my studies, this is what caught my attention. In 2004, the spectral signature of methane was detected in the Martian atmosphere by both Earth-based telescopes as well as by the Mars Express probe. Because of solar radiation and cosmic radiation, methane is predicted to disappear from the Martian atmosphere within several years. So the gas must be actively replenished in order to maintain the present concentration. In short, I truly believe we will have confirmation of life outside of planet Earth in the next 2 to 3 generations. When personal genomic sequencing becomes readily accessible, even as a routine medical service, much like a physical, we should be able to place the data into a controlled anonymized database and use statistical analysis to essentially link most disease states and predispositions to their genotypic bases. There are loads of combinatoric black holes in the genome data right now, since we haven't been able to collect large-scale, high-throughput disease or genotype relationships on a genomic scale yet due to the expense. Have a look at the company 23andMe for an example of a smaller scale version of this. They represent a good first step towards breaking the cost down and making personal genomics accessible regardless of socioeconomic status. Psychology/biology. This is kind of out there, but I believe hormonal birth control plays a role in a subset of divorces and in the birth of children with poor immune systems. I think most people are familiar with the t-shirt study that found women were attracted to the smell of men with dissimilar immune systems and that they felt t-shirts with similar immune systems smelled like their father or brother. Women on hormonal birth control did not perform well in that study. They often picked similar immune systems as more attractive. A massive percentage of women are on birth control during their dating years and when they meet their husbands. After marriage, another percentage of those women will stop taking hormonal birth control in order to have children. What happens then? If you have a woman who marries a man who is a poor genetic match, someone she may not have wanted to be with if she wasn't on birth control, when she goes off of her birth control, it stands to reason that her perception of her husband may change. Given that her body and personality will be going through a change while her hormones are re-regulated, her husband's view of her may change as well. It would not surprise me if this subconscious change contributes to divorce rates. In addition, should those hypothetical people have children, the child may have a poorer immune system due to the lack of genetic variance between its parents. Darwin's dilemma refers to the absence of known macroscopic fossils, excluding microbial stuff, from beneath the base of the Cambrian period, older than 541 million years, when he was first describing his theory of evolution. Everyone, including Darwin, expected that when fossils were found from before the Cambrian period that they would be the ancestors of modern animals. Then when those fossils were found, Ediosaura biota we call them, they were enthusiastically classified as ancient jellyfish, ancient worms, etc. But it turns out that's a load of BS. Consensus is growing that almost none of those classifications were accurate. Instead, most Ediacaran organisms seem to have belonged to extinct groups unrelated to anything alive today, and they lived in a world that was so different from the following 540 million years. They had modes of life distinct from any living macroscopic organisms. We were so eager to make everything fit into our neat little evolutionary narrative that for decades we basically glossed over these crazy, alien sort of ecosystems that could be critical to understanding the origins of complex life on other planets as well as our own. We are still just beginning to really understand it though. It's a very controversial field of paleontology. Neuroscience here. Paraplegia and quadriplegia are solved problems. We are already very good at recognizing patterns of activity measured through EEG or other non-invasive recording methods in real time and using this data to control various simple machines. The next step is expanding the scale so that, instead of controlling a computer mouse, a paralyzed individual controls legs or arms fluidly. Currently, the most well-known researcher adapting this technology to allowing paralyzed people to walk and move is Miguel Nicolelis, who plans to construct an exoskeleton to allow a paralyzed person to kick a soccer ball at the World Cup. Soon, very soon, we will be able to make this feasible for real-world application. Beyond that, the entire field of brain-machine interface is booming. It is a natural adaptation of where neuroscience is, because it is not simple, but relatively so, need to be able to
Oh,
recognize
that's
recurring patterns
bullshit.
you observe when an individual thinks or does something to be able to use those patterns to control machines. It's a fancy trick to allow thought control without really understanding why or how those thoughts exist in the first place. I am a student in meteorology. This is more of a technological advance than something that needs to be proven. Within the next 10 to 20 years, most cars or cell phones will have microchips in them whose sole purpose is to record the current data, such as temp, wind, etc. This will allow for millions upon millions of data points, which in turn will greatly increase the grid spacing for forecast models. In layman's terms, forecast accuracy and forecast personalization will be near pristine, down to the seconds. Microchips are already cheap enough. We just need the proper computing power to process all of the data in real time. Supercomputers to the rescue. Thanks for listening to Radio TTS. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to become the best hunter of the tribe. Click the right box for the Existential Crisis playlist. Let us know in the comments what you think about these theories.
Robinhood is an investing app that lets you buy and sell stocks and ETFs, all commission-free. Getting started is simple. You can easily invest in the companies you love. Waiting on the right moment?
Planet. Earth is overdue for this switch, and when it does happen, we don't know exactly what will happen and can't do anything to prevent it. It's very likely that there will be extreme weather events. All power stations and most technology will break and take quite a while to fix. And animals that instinctually use the magnetic fields to navigate, birds, fish, bees, turtles, and lots of others, will be so confused that they'll likely get lost and die. The fact that we're the only human species left when there were as many as 8 different ones on Earth. And we see a tendency for them to disappear shortly after our species reach their region of the globe. So, it is not impossible that the reason we're the only one left is that we systematically killed or starved them to extinction. Also, it's crazy to think that for so long we had forgotten that other species existed altogether, and many of our religions prided themselves for being unique. It's almost like a guilty secret that we collectively tried to erase. We literally hallucinate reality. We don't see with our eyes. We see with our brains. Our eyes are just like cameras on the exterior of a windowless spaceship. Your brain is like the computer interpreting the information the cameras send to it. What makes it freaky is that our brains emit or delete a lot of what our eyes see, because it is deemed irrelevant to the task at hand. Here is the famous selective attention test. If you've never seen it, it's a short video and will change how you see scene. It's best I don't say too much. Think of this the next time you consider eyewitness testimony. Years ago I saw an episode of Monsters Inside Me where this guy was doing something outside and a fly flew into his eye. It only made contact for about a microsecond, but it was enough time for it to lay eggs. After they hatched, they started eating his eye from the inside, and he was starting to go blind until a doctor figured out what was wrong. Just imagine that, getting your eye eaten from the inside and losing your sight all because a fly very briefly made contact with you. Ever since I learned about this, I get really paranoid when there's a fly around my face because of the fact that this could possibly happen to me. Thanks for listening to Radio TTS. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell before your brain knows it. Click the right box for the facts playlist. Let us know in the comments what you think about these facts. I don't know exactly what to believe since there's so much misinformation out there, but I'll just believe the articles who've done the most research for now. They say it was most likely not hundreds of dogs, because they can't find reports of that many jumping off like the legend says. It was only around 6, but it's still sad and a bit weird that 6 dogs jumped off. The Tamam Shute case, also known as the Mystery of the Somerton Man, is an unsolved case of an unidentified man found dead at 6:30 a.m. December 1st, 1948, on the Somerton Park Beach, just south of Adelaide, South Australia. The case is named after the Persian phrase Tamam Shute, meaning ended or finished, which was printed on a scrap of paper found months later in the fob pocket of the man's trousers. The scrap had been torn from the final page of a copy of Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, authored by 12th century poet Omar Khayyam. Tamam was misspelt as Damon in many early reports, and this error has often been repeated, leading to confusion about the name in the media. The Salish Sea Feet, or the Mad Axe Man of New Orleans. The Salish Sea Feet are the approximately 20 dismembered feet found in or around British Columbia or Washington, USA. The feet sometimes are found still inside of shoes. No one knows how they got there or where they came from. Over the course of the last 13 years, the authorities have ruled out foul play. The Mad Axe Man of New Orleans ran rampant in 1918 and 1919. He murdered 6 people, usually those of Italian descent, with axes or straight razors. In March of 1919, he sent a lengthy letter from hottest hell that was pretty nonsensical. But the most relevant paragraphs read, "Now, to be exact, at 12:15, earthly time, on next Tuesday night, I am going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I am going to make a little proposition to you people. Here it is. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have just mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band going, well, then, so much the better for you people. One thing is certain, and that is that some of your people who do not jazz it out on that specific Tuesday night, if there be any, will get the axe." There were no murders that night because every dance hall in NOLA was filled to capacity. The Konkanla Pass in Ladakh. This region lies in the disputed border of India and China, and is truly one of the most inaccessible places in the world. In 1962, the armies of both the countries were engaged in a severe conflict. After this, both China and India entered into an agreement according to which none will be allowed to patrol the region, but can keep an eye on it from a distance. After this, a popular belief floated that the Konkanla Pass in Ladakh is a hideous base of UFOs. The area has forever remained a no man's land due to its territorial limits and is the reason why the UFOs have chosen it as their operational base. Reportedly, many have seen these UFOs, and both the Indian and Chinese governments are aware of these developments. In 2006, Google Maps 2 baffled the world with some images that looked like military facilities, but till date the whole issue remains mysterious and unexplainable. 3 lighthouse workers with impeccable mustaches traveled to a remote island on December 7, 1900 for a lighthouse shift that should have lasted for 2 weeks. When a boat arrived to pick them up, they were gone. No trace of the bodies, and the lighthouse was strangely locked. Not only was the setting normal, meal ready to be served, but there was no fire in the fireplace, and the clock stopped. One of the men kept a log in a diary, and he said that the seas were rough one day, but when monitored, it was actually calm. No one knows what happened to them. MV Joyita. Barnacle growth high above the usual waterline on the port side showed that Joyita had been listing heavily for some time. There was some damage to the superstructure. Her flying bridge had been smashed away and the deckhouse had light damage and broken windows. A canvas awning had been rigged on top of the deckhouse behind the bridge. Joyita carried a dinghy and 3 Carly life rafts, but all were missing. She did not carry enough life jackets for everyone on board. The starboard engine was found to be covered by mattresses, while the port engine's clutch was still partially disassembled, showing that the vessel was still running on only one engine. An auxiliary pump had been rigged in the engine room, mounted on a plank of wood slung between the main engines. However, it had not been connected. The radio on board was tuned to the International Distress Channel. But when the equipment was inspected, a break was found in the cable between the set and the aerial. The cable had been painted over, obscuring the break. This would have limited the range of the radio to about 2 miles, 3.2 kilometers. The electric clocks on board, wired into the vessel's generator, had stopped at 10:25 and the switches for the cabin lighting and navigation lights were on, implying that whatever had occurred happened at night. The ship's logbook, sextant, mechanical chronometer and other navigational equipment, as well as the firearms Miller kept in the boat, were missing. A doctor's bag was found on deck, containing a stethoscope, a scalpel, and 4 lengths of blood-stained bandages. In 1994, close to 100 school children, 60 on record, described seeing a disc-shaped craft land behind their school during morning break time in Rua, Zimbabwe. Many of them interacted with beings that fit the gray alien description, with the children receiving what is described as some sort of telepathic communication. They all still stick to their stories today. The original footage of the interviews with the kids at the school can be found on YouTube. The toxic death of Gloria Ramirez. 23 people became ill due to Ramirez's presence and 5 were hospitalized. We have never worked out what happened. There's an episode of the Stuff You Should Know podcast that talks about it. About 8:15 p.m. on the evening of February 19, 1994, Ramirez, suffering from severe heart palpitations, was brought into the emergency department of Riverside General Hospital by paramedics. She was extremely confused and was suffering from tachycardia and Cheyne-Stokes respiration. The medical staff injected her with diazepam, midazolam, and lorazepam to sedate her. When it became clear that Ramirez was responding poorly to treatment, the staff tried to defibrillate her heart. At that point, several people saw an oily sheen covering Ramirez's body. And some noticed a fruity, garlic-like odor that they thought was coming from her mouth. A registered nurse named Susan Kane attempted to draw blood from Ramirez's arm and noticed an ammonia-like smell coming from the tube. She passed the syringe to Julie Gorczynski, a medical resident, who noticed manila-colored particles floating in the blood. At this point, Kane fainted and was removed from the room. Shortly thereafter, Gorczynski began to feel nauseated. Complaining that she was lightheaded, she left the trauma room and sat at a nurse's desk. A staff member asked her if she was okay, but before she could respond, she also fainted. Maureen Welch, a respiratory therapist who was assisting in the trauma room, was the third to pass out. The staff was then ordered to evacuate all emergency department patients to the parking lot outside the hospital. Overall, 23 people became ill and 5 were hospitalized. A skeleton crew stayed behind to stabilize Ramirez. At 8:50 p.m., after 45 minutes of CPR and defibrillation, Ramirez was pronounced dead from kidney failure related to her cancer. The self-destruction of Ellen Greenberg. 20 stab wounds in different areas of the body. Self-destruction stabbings are so ridiculous. There's a case from Denmark in 2003 where a woman was found dead by her husband, who called the police and said she had ended herself. She was on the bedroom floor next to a broken lamp. Her wristwatch was torn off, and she had 179 stab wounds. Because it was a Sunday, they had to call in a criminal assistant on his off day, and he deemed it a self-end, because she had a history of depression. On April 19, 1995, a truck bomb detonated outside the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. The explosion killed 168 in what was the deadliest terrorist attack on the United States until 9/11. To date, it still remains the deadliest act of domestic terrorism in the country. One of the lesser-known things about this is the case of the missing leg. Investigators discovered the leg laying among the rubble and identified it belonging to Lakeisha Levy. The only problem was, she'd already been buried with both her legs. She was exhumed. Her severed leg was placed in her coffin while the other leg was taken to the FBI laboratory for identification. Since it had been embalmed, a DNA sample was unable to be obtained. The extra left leg, which had been mistakenly buried with Levy, is suspected to belong to an unidentified 169th victim, whose body had mostly disintegrated in the blast. This has led people to suspect there was an additional terrorist involved, even though perpetrators Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols had been convicted, with 2 others later identified as accomplices. So who is the possible additional bomber? They still remain unidentified now 25 years after the attack. Literally any dig site in archaeology, even the ones that are just garbage and potsherds, are fascinating if you try to really picture the people behind them, what they thought and felt. Actually, garbage probably tells you more about people than anything else, really. But my favorite is Chauvet Cave. If you have a chance, watch Werner Herzog's documentary Cave of Forgotten Dreams. I think it's still on Netflix. It has some of the most stunning cave art in the world, which almost certainly had some kind of profound significance, and we don't, and will likely never, know what it is. Moreover, there's evidence that the cave was abandoned for thousands of years and later returned to, only for the returnees to continue to make paintings in the exact same style and, possibly, for the exact same reasons. There is so much to be seen in these figures. There's a portrait of an animal tossing its head that looks like one of the world's earliest explorations of stop-motion or sequential art. When I look at it, I can feel the will of the painter, who wanted so much to convey this sort of motion. There are also the footprints of a boy, who arrived much later to the cave than its original users, whose marks appear to be contemporary with the paw prints of the wolf. It's hard to say now, according to Cave of Forgotten Dreams, whether they walked together, whether they walked 20 years apart, whether they were friends, or whether the wolf was stalking the boy. But I read a blog post by a professional hunter and tracker, who looked at the footage of the prints from the film and said that they likely walked together. I wonder what they were thinking. If the boy had some knowledge of what he would find there, or if he was simply exploring a cave and found some of the greatest art in human history. In Chauvet there is also the solution to a mystery. Until the discovery of Chauvet Cave, paleontologists were unsure as to whether cave lions had manes. On the cave walls there is an illustration of a cave lion with visible testicles and no mane, settling that debate. Thanks for listening to Radio TTS. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell for more creepy content. Click the right box for the best of Radio TTS playlist. Let us know in the comments what you think about these stories.
Escape to the world of anime with the Funimation app in both subs and dubs. You can stream and download anywhere, completely ad-free and in HD on the devices you love. What are you waiting for? Start your free trial now.
I have a convenience store delivery for Super Grover.
Oh yeah, he said just put it there. Perfect timing. Get more from your neighborhood. So soft. DoorDash.
I'm gonna bring the girl in here, okay?
仕事がまだ終わってません。休んでいいのでしょうか。足元に気をつけて。おさわり禁止。ついていきます。よっ。ついていきます。ここだよ。
Toes putting up.
Oh, she wakes up. I don't think she's gonna wake up for like another hour.
Alright. You gotta get up, boy. Daddy's sorry. Oh boy.
組合会館。まだ仕事が残っているが、君は休むといい。僕は仕事に戻ろう。
ここだよ。
古代の錬金術は不思議だな。